This week's bottom line is the most interesting piece of economic research I've seen recently, which analyzes the minimum wage increase in Seattle. The minimum wage debate is kind of a tricky one, not only just because it's very politicized, but also because we don't actually know what the impact is of raising minimum wage on employers, employees, companies, and the economy. If you look at a survey of economists, of 42 economists that was done a few years ago, and where they were asked whether slowly increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2020 would result in substantially lower employment rates for low-wage workers, most economists responded that they were uncertain, and the rest were split between agree and disagree. And among those that disagreed, most of them explained that it was because there's no reason to believe it would be substantially lower, even if it was lower. So just to get an idea of something that feels like such a hard science as economics and so number-based, to not really know exactly what the fallout is one way or the other, for me, it makes it really fun to read research that tries to tell us the answer. So the city of Seattle commissioned the study and gave the University of Washington access to individual level data, employment data that the city has. And the researchers looked at the move from when Seattle went from $9.47 an hour to up to $11 an hour in 2015, and then the move from $11 to up to $13 an hour at the beginning of 2016. They found very little impact in the first change, partially because it's a smaller move and also because some of the low-wage earners may have already been making more than the $9.47 an hour. But in the second move, they found that the wage increases went up 3% for the low earners, but that the number of hours that they were paid for during that time went down by 9%. The net effect being that on average, each low-wage earner lost $125 per month, or which works out to $100 million in lost payroll in over a year in Seattle. So there has been some pushback to the study. The study doesn't look at companies that have multiple locations, that include places outside of Seattle, which excludes a lot of the big fast food chains. Berkeley did a study of the Seattle minimum wage increase that came out a few days before the Washington study that focused on fast food at all earning levels, and it showed very little impact or very little negative impact from the minimum wage increase. However, as the University of Washington people point out in their research, is that we've done a lot of studies like this before where we look at fast food as an industry, or we look at retail as an industry, and we look at earners at every level, and sometimes you can fire a few low-wage people and hire a management level person or something like that, so a lot of things get skewed. But the really interesting thing is to have this data point that looks at the individual level data and shows that it may be causing fewer hours for low-wage earners to be getting paid. And it's incredible to me that there's so much to figure out still on this topic. And regardless of whether you think increasing the minimum wage will kill businesses and the economy and just destroy jobs, or if you think that raising minimum wage is the only way to get Americans a living wage, we still need all this information. And this study differs and offers a different perspective and new data and information, which is what makes it so fun and interesting. And it's a piece of the puzzle that we have to incorporate. And that's the bottom line.